Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett. Kent Myers, usually sitting in an adjacent chair, is not here with us this week. He is traveling. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Our guest today is going to be Elaine Dodd. She's the Vice President of Fraud Division for the Oklahoma Bankers Association. And I don't think it's just me. I think there really is an increase in the amount of fraud that's taking place in our banks. I know it certainly seems that way from where I sit, and today we'll find out from Elaine if that's accurate and what's being done to stop it. Our guest is Elaine Dodd from the Oklahoma Bankers Association Fraud Division. It's all coming up next on The Verdict.
The day Chesapeake became a leading force in Fort Worth's Barnett Shale was a day of victory for all of our nation. The biggest new natural gas field in the country is on the front lines of American energy, and so is Chesapeake. We're pioneers of horizontal drilling, which makes it possible to tap the potential of a great field like the Barnett Shale under cities like Fort Worth. Chesapeake was founded to focus purely on developing America's clean-burning natural gas. And today, we drill more new gas wells than anyone else. Across America, Chesapeake's drilling creates more jobs, tax collections, and income for landowners. We're a growing source of U.S. energy and economic strength, proving that victory is right under our feet. Chesapeake. American energy wins the day.
And Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Leaving it 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go for it. Wiggins in to do the kicking. Here's the snap. And the kick is away.
Hi, honey. You've got to check this out.
What? What are we listening to?
I had digital phone service installed today.
It sounds just like before.
I know, but it's going to save us a ton of money.
With Cox Digital Telephone, you'll save big every month. Keep your same phone number and get your favorite calling features. Just pay less.
That does sound good.
You should hear the upstairs phone.
There's a whole new world online, but it's not always safe for kids. What if someone you meet online sends a message that makes you feel uncomfortable? Tell a parent or teacher right now. It's the safe way for kids, right, gang?
Right. Be safe online.
Thanks to Lauren Nelson and Cox, we're working to keep Oklahoma kids safer online. For your free guide, log on now. And if you feel your child has been placed in danger by someone online, notify law enforcement today.
And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with our guest, Elaine Dodd. She is Vice President of the Fraud Division of the Oklahoma Bankers Association. Elaine, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mick.
Very impressive resume, bachelor's degree in political science and criminal justice from the University of Oklahoma. You spent 22 years in law enforcement doing investigative work with the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. You retired in 1995 as its director. 6 years coordinating a community outreach effort of Leadership Oklahoma. Now, as I mentioned, Vice President of the Fraud Unit of the Oklahoma Bankers Association. And many community activities and awards, including, and this is very noteworthy, one of the nominated for one of the 50 Making a Difference for the Journal Record Women of the Year. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Now, I understand that Oklahoma, of all the banking associations across the country, is the only one with someone assigned to stop fraud. Is that basically correct?
That's correct. It was really cutting edge and visionary. But Roger Beveridge decided that we needed it to help the banks and turns out to help the communities too.
Okay, so doing the job interview for a position that he had kind of created, how did that go and how did he describe what you might be doing?
Actually, I just happened to mention that I might be making a change, and he said, we're maybe going to start a fraud unit, but we don't know what you'll be doing. Might be sitting back there twiddling your thumbs, and I'm yet looking for the twiddle your thumbs day because it hasn't happened.
Yeah, are more people attempting to fraud the banking system and as a result, the community in general?
Absolutely. Probably in a large part due to the fact that technology has boomed. It's easier. People from Romania, people from Nigeria, anywhere overseas can sit behind a computer and defraud people of tens of thousands of dollars and almost be immune to prosecution. We just about can't work them.
There was a time when I assume millions of others, got that email from someone in Nigeria that needed to transfer some funds, and the idea was that eventually you would give up your bank account information and they would put money into your account for you in some sort of too good to be true scheme. Are those things still going on, and do people actually buy into it and give that information out?
Amazingly so. They still are going on. Some people are buying into it. The scarier thing is they've morphed into a more dangerous form of that same scam, and that's our lottery sweepstakes scam. They send you the check. Once you're looking at that check that you have in the mail and you're promised $7.2 million if you'll simply take the check to your bank and wire them money, that's what happens. People will wire money overseas, sight unseen, just assuming they're going to win something, and 0% of the time do they gain anything.
Mm-hmm. Is that sort of the newest trend to weigh off people's lottery interest?
That's been big for 2 or 3 years now, and it is huge. I've talked to one lady who had wired over $30,000 to Canada. Mm-hmm. One little lady was trying to wire another 25 overseas. She was 90 years old. We see that every day. There are other versions also trying to pull out from banks through using the TDD system, the hearing impaired system. They'll call in and say that you want to wire money out of your account, and even have a signature they could have cut and pasted from the internet.
Okay, let's say that I've fallen for one of these email scams. What level of government is going to investigate it and try to help me get my money back? Where should the first call be, and where's it going to end up?
If it's local, the first call should be to your local police department or sheriff's department. That's the first way to go. If it is national and it has anything to do with a terrorist, if you think they may be money laundering or that comes into play, the FBI and Secret Service can and will look at it. However, the problem is, once it goes overseas, once it goes to Canada, if it goes out of the country, most times our federal law enforcement can't, and they don't have the manpower and the time to go over there and address those issues, and we can't extradite. So generally, once the money is gone, it's gone. So it's a question of education, and that's what the bankers are trying to do for everyone.
Mm-hmm. So how would your role with the Oklahoma Bankers Association, what role would you play with law enforcement to try to help people and try to help banks?
Well, the fact that I'm old and I have a rich history in law enforcement works to my benefit because I know officers from across the state. I have an amazing network, so I can call the chief in Claremore and say, hey, Mick, we need this worked, and get cases down at a different kind of level. Plus, I've worked with the district attorney's offices for years, so we're able to make them understand in a better way. This is what we're seeing, the level of these crimes, and this is why we need prosecution here, and we need your help. So the networking. We have a whole group called Mafia, Metro Area Financial Investigators, that meet monthly.
Nice name.
I love the name. You can just say, I'm going to my Mafia meeting, and everyone says, go. Get hot. But it's a wonderful sharing group because we're able to share and better track these people. So our networking in Oklahoma is beyond, it's bar none. It's better than any other state, I believe.
Now, there's lots of areas of fraud. Are you just involved with those involving bank accounts and numbers that may have been given out or dollars and cents that may have been sent overseas?
Not really. The lottery scam, for example, that even though a lot of times someone will have taken it to their bank, it's not necessarily a bank issue. But the bankers decided early on, my first task, what they asked me to do was investigations in the banks, which I love to do, and training of the bank people. And they 24/7 are working to get their people understanding, this is what a counterfeit cashier's check looks like. This is a bogus money order. This is why you should be suspicious of this, so that people can go into their banks and feel good about it. But even at that, we realized that doesn't go far enough when little Tilly comes into the bank Monday morning saying, oh dear, perhaps I should not have given those yahoos on the internet my account number and my PIN number and my DNA from my firstborn son. They'll give out things that are unconscionable. I'm joking on the DNA, but the things that they give out, once it's gone, then the loss has already occurred and it's too late. So we're talking to customers. I talked to 7,000 or 8,000 people last year. Every year the number grows, just trying to alert them and make them understand how to stay safe better.
More and more people are doing their banking over the internet, paying your bills over the internet, moving money from one of your accounts to another account. In general, is that a safe way to bank?
Absolutely, and I don't just say that because I work with the bankers. I say that because that's what I do. As cautious as I am, I do a lot of my banking online because I can look every day and see what's come out of my account. I can see if there's been any movement of money, if somebody's trying to pull out for things that I did not authorize. It's just like checking your bank statements and your credit card statements every month. You have to do those, but with the online function, you can look daily and see what's going on. So I feel safer as long as I don't have a virus on my computer. That's the critical element there. A keylogger virus will let every keystroke go unencrypted to the bad guys, which we can't have. So you really have to keep up your spyware.
Well, what are my responsibilities as a consumer who's using this? If I had a virus and if my information got out through no knowledge of my own, am I responsible for the misdeeds of others who might access my account?
Generally not. Generally, you are responsible for letting the bank know. That's the critical idea. You have a window of time, and usually it's about 60 days to let people know that there's been a fraud. If you're just not looking at your bank statements for 6 months and then you say, oh my, someone's been pulling out or writing checks I didn't know about, then we can address it early on. That's why there is a time frame. But if you can't alert your bank, they're there to help you. And what they want to do is help you get it turned around.
Mm-hmm. When someone writes a hot check, is that generally a local issue, or is that generally going to involve more of the state and more of the federal?
It's generally a local issue, and those things are not well prosecuted, quite frankly. There are just so many of those out there that people have done it for years and gotten by with it. Our prison systems are overfull, so there's a lot of that out there.
We're visiting with Elaine Dodge. She's Vice President, Fraud Division of the Oklahoma Bankers Association. We're talking about all sorts of interesting things that affect you and your money. We'll be right back with the verdict after this.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of the verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Shining is taking responsibility. At Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, we know managing your health care can be overwhelming, and it's our job to help you meet the challenge. By guiding, supporting, and showing the way, we encourage you to gain control. Because we believe the best tool we can give you is the confidence to take charge. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma, shining through.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
There's a whole new world online, but it's not always safe for kids. That's why your parents and teachers set clear rules, when to go online and how to protect yourself on the internet. It's the safe way for kids, right, gang?
Right. Be safe online.
Thanks to Lauren Nelson and Cox, we're working to keep Oklahoma kids safer online. For your free guide, log on now. And if you feel your child has been placed in danger by someone online, Notify law enforcement today.
Looks like somebody doesn't want you to know the facts about Cox Digital Telephone. Maybe it's because over 1.5 million customers are saving big, and you can too. Plus, you'll save even more on all your Cox services when you bundle today.
Oh, here's that new phone service I've been hearing about.
So while the phone company may not like competition,
Nice doggy.
you're gonna love it.
Nice doggy.
Welcome back to The Verdict. I'm visiting with Elaine Dodd. She's Vice President, Fraud Division of the Oklahoma Bankers Association. Thanks for sticking around for one more segment.
Glad to be here.
Is fraud increasing in general? Should people be more concerned today than they were 5-10 years ago?
Absolutely. It's increasing dramatically. There are people overseas that are actually going to school on how to do this. There's a rap song in Nigeria on I Steal Your Money, and it's a way of culture in some areas. When I first started up there, we'd get maybe a call a week, maybe every other week. Now, the bankers do know and rely on me more than they did then, but I get probably 20 calls a day from banks right now, just different frauds.
What can a citizen do?
There are lots of citizens, and we have to be proactive. While the banks are trying to help you, there are just as simply as the things I mentioned earlier, looking at your bank statements every month. Only 10% of our nation does that. I find that amazing. Looking at your credit card statements to be sure that you don't have anything on there, because if you've used your credit card to buy anything in a restaurant, online, anything, someone can have used that number. So you have to look and be sure there are things that you've authorized. We had someone try to buy a Lexus on one of our bankers' accounts last summer in the state of New York. It happens, so you have to be looking and monitoring these things and checking your credit report, which we can do for free. You can check each of the big three once a year for free on annualcreditreport.com. It's critical they go on that site. The freecreditreport.com site will cost them, and if they want credit score, that's an okay thing. Otherwise, this one is better. Shredding. It is job one. In businesses, you're required to. There are major regulations, and that's good, so that we don't let out customer information. But even watching things like a thumb drive that you might put into your computer, and you might have personal information on there, you can't let those things get stolen.
What should a person shred?
You should shred anything with critical information on it. Your account numbers, if you have something with credit card numbers, yes. Anything with banking information should be shred. Anything with even old checks, because even though you've inactivated the account, you may have closed it, they can still paper the town with it, and you're still going to have to deal with it. So anything with your information should go through a shredder, cross-cut shredder.
Do you anticipate other states and their banking associations starting to get more people into the fraud part of it?
Yes, we see other states. Colorado has now done a task force where they actually have some people from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation on it. The state of New York has asked us, how can we do this? A state of Hawaii, I've offered to go help, but haven't got any nibbles on that yet. But everyone's wanting to do it because it's been so wonderful, not only with the networking with the law enforcement and those things we can bring to the table, but just being a central point. I can know this morning that I heard someone call on the TDD scam, or someone call on faxing information to wire out your account numbers, and I'll be able to address that with the training in a bank this afternoon.
What segments of our society are most susceptible or are typically the targets?
Identity theft, it's 18 to 32 years old because we're on the computer more, but the real targets of all the crimes are the seniors. Not because they are more trusting. Sometimes they're isolated. There are all those issues that fall into it. But those aren't the things that make the difference. It's because the fraudsters know that these people have the money. 70% of our nation's wealth is in the hand of seniors. They have their retirement accounts, where middle-aged people are trying to pay for the SUV and soccer uniforms and gasoline, and young people are borrowing from middle-aged people. Seniors have a nest egg, so the fraudsters can send them that counterfeit cashier's check or bogus instrument and say, oh, while the bank has a hold on it, no, the check is good, so go ahead and wire us the money now. They'll pull it out of their account. I can't tell you how many seniors I talk to every week that are trying to do that, and I have to unconvince them that they haven't just won a small fortune.
What's the best way to communicate to seniors that they should be leery of these types of activities? What outreach do you offer in your office?
We do programs for customers, for banks. We do community programs and customer programs, and in those, it is delightful to see that little light come on when you say, your bank will never call you and ask you for your account number. They made it up. They better know it themselves. So if you get a phone call or email from them asking for that information, delete the email or hang up the phone. And when they hear it in community, that seems to be really powerful. So they get stronger and they take proactive charge of their own financial resources.
Are there people out there willing to speak to Rotary groups, Kiwanis groups, church groups where this message can be spread?
I do that a lot. Other organizations, I believe AARP does it. I know that the Sheriff's Department had a group that did that through I believe the Triad group. They're just different groups. OCPD has people who work through the Mafia group and can do those types of programs.
Early in the calendar year, people are always talking about what's going on at the state legislature. Is there any legislation that you're following this year that affects you in your role with the OBA?
Not on this issue. We had a lot of legislation that had to do with identity theft last year. Most things, though, can't be legislated in this. Most things are just a function of, and we have done a few things to tweak legislation where if someone calls for your account information, it's now a felony in Oklahoma, and that's as it should be a pretext phone call. However, most things are just a function of us being proactive in protecting ourselves.
When the email scams, which seem to be ever on the increase, how in the world do you ever start to find where those began? How would you go about trying to find where an email originated?
You can check through that address. You can go back and tell where it originated, at least the country, and usually track it down. However, there's very little we can do about it if it's out of the country, and nearly always it's out of the country. The work-at-home scams, we'll give you money for free. Anything that looks too good to be true, just be suspicious.
All right, let's go over some of them may seem like common sense, but some of them may slip by some people. How often should a person change their passwords and on any account that has to do with their banking?
Passwords first should not be easy. That's the big thing with passwords. You need numbers in your passwords, you need dots in your passwords.
Why is that?
Because they run, even though there are more permutations, more combinations with a letter than a number. But if you put in a number, they're only running codes of letters in other countries. Most of the code breakers, they're all words. So they're running different codes with different letters. So dots, asterisks, those types of things you can insert, and numbers mess them up.
Okay.
So I change passwords pretty frequently. The big thing about passwords is to be cautious with it. There's a thing called social engineering where someone could call you and say, I'm working on a thing with Elaine and I really need to get into this PowerPoint. Could you give me your password? And you happen to know it, so you give it to them. That's social engineering. It happens in offices all the time, but bigger than that, I can walk through most offices in Oklahoma and find people's passwords. You simply look under the keyboard, look under the mouse pad. Some people, the worst offenders, put it on a Post-it note on the monitor.
And the password that you use at your bank should probably be different from the one that you use at your office.
Absolutely. The banks have to be absolutely careful with that because there's a whole group called DEF CON. They have a convention in Las Vegas every summer, and their goal is to hack into computers. And the first ones I'd love to get into is financial institutions. So our people in the banks really have to watch their passwords.
Elaine, thank you for what you're doing in our community, and we appreciate the OBA for recognizing this as a community need and getting you out there trying to help people.
Thank you.
All right, Elaine Dodd, the Vice President of the Fraud Division of the Oklahoma Bankers Association. I'll be back with a final word after this.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Oh, hi. I know you guys said I'd save with Cox Digital Telephone. Well, my bill came and... Could this be right?
You may be surprised how much you save with Cox Digital Telephone. That's why over 1.5 million people have switched.
So this really is a total. Lovely. Because I think I found a good use for the savings.
With Cox, there's no waiting for the other shoe to drop. The only surprise is there's no surprise at all.
Not sure where you're headed? NATS can help you find your way. It's the National Athletic Testing System. We call it NATS. You'll call it your launching pad to success. NATS will give you a standardized evaluation that will help you measure your performance and give that information to college coaches so they can accurately evaluate your potential. NATS also helps with academic support. Join with the Oklahoma High School Football Coaches Association and head for success at www.nats.us.
Welcome back to The Verdict. We are wrapping up today's show with the Oklahoma Bankers Association and their fraud division. Elaine Dodd, the vice president of fraud, was on our show, and she discussed a host of ideas that I think a lot of people should keep in mind in trying to keep their bank accounts safe and to keep people who have fraudulent intent from getting their money. Let me give the web address for the OBA, because I think there's some fraud information on there, and you or someone who didn't see this show might be directed to this site where they can get more information on how to protect themselves with fraud. I think the most important thing she talked about, though, were changing your passwords and getting a shredder and shredding as much of the information as you think is that might be susceptible to fraud. There's a lot of people out there, especially with the internet and email, who are attempting to get at your money. Hey, next week we're going to have a show on the Oklahoma Centennial Business Expo. Look forward to that show, and also guide you to our website, theverdict.tv. You can go to this site and give us ideas on a show that you'd like to see on The Verdict. See you next time. So long.
The preceding program was produced by the Production Services Group at Cox Communications, exclusively for the Cox Channel.